What if I told you that some of the biggest celebrities in history were actually working as spies? That's right. Behind the glitz and glamour, they were helping the CIA, sneaking around with secret missions and living double lives. Let me tell you these crazy, jaw-dropping stories of how the world's most famous faces became real-life secret agents. By the way, I upload videos every week. So, if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss a thing. Now, let's talk about Marlene Dietrich. She was this glamorous actress and singer from Germany who became a huge star in Hollywood during the 1930s and 40s. But, you see, she wasn't just about the glitz and glam. She was also fiercely anti-Nazi, like hardcore anti-Nazi. When World War II broke out, Marlene used her fame to help the Allied forces in some pretty incredible ways. For starters, Marlene worked with the OSS, entertaining troops on the front lines. She risked her life to perform for soldiers in some of the most dangerous war zones, like North Africa and Italy. Imagine being in a war zone, and there's Marlene Dietrich singing Lily Marlene to keep your spirits up. But wait, there's more. Marlene also helped the OSS by recording anti-Nazi propaganda messages in German. These recordings were broadcast to German soldiers to, mess with their morale. It was like the, hey, listen to Marlene Dietrich, your own country's superstar, telling you to give up. Talk about a power move. And here's a fun fact. After the war, the US government awarded her the Medal of Freedom for her contributions. Pretty cool, huh? She wasn't just a Hollywood icon, she was a hero. Alright, let's move on to Sterling Hayden, a guy who could have been the leading man in his own spy movie. Hayden wasn't just a ruggedly handsome actor from films like The Asphalt Jungle and Dr. Strangelove. During World War II, this man took a break from Hollywood to work for the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the precursor to the CIA. Hayden's life was already adventurous. Before acting, he worked as a fisherman and ship's captain. Those skills made him perfect for espionage. When the war broke out, Hayden joined the US Marines, but the OSS thought, this guy could be really useful. And they were right. The OSS sent Hayden on covert missions in Europe, particularly in the Balkans. His job? Work with resistance groups like the Partisans in Yugoslavia to sabotage Nazi forces and gather intelligence. Imagine parachuting into enemy territory, coordinating fighters, and avoiding capture. That's what Hayden did. One of his biggest contributions was smuggling supplies to resistance fighters. The Nazis occupied much of Europe, and these groups needed weapons, food, and medical aid to survive. Hayden's maritime skills were crucial for planning supply drops. He also gathered intel on Nazi movements for Allied forces. Hayden wasn't just brave, he was resourceful. On one mission, he reportedly helped organize a daring escape for trapped resistance fighters. It's like something straight out of an action movie, but it was real life. After the war, Hayden struggled with what he'd experienced. He became a vocal critic of US foreign policy, despite his courageous service. And during the Hollywood blacklist era in the 1950s, he testified before Congress, naming names of supposed communists, a decision he later deeply regretted. He once said, "I'd give anything to take back the names I gave to that committee." Despite controversies, Hayden's time as an OSS operative shows his bravery and adaptability. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a real-life hero, risking his life in ways most of us can only imagine. Now let's talk about John Chambers, the Hollywood makeup artist who went beyond transforming actors. He helped the CIA pull off one of the most daring rescue missions ever. Chambers, famous for his work on Planet of the Apes, had a knack for making the impossible look real. In 1979, when the Iranian Revolution took over the US Embassy in Tehran, 6 Americans escaped and went into hiding. This was a dangerous situation, and the CIA needed a way to get them out without tipping off Iranian officials. That's where Chambers came in. With his Hollywood expertise, he helped create a fake sci-fi movie production called Argo. The idea was to convince Iranian authorities that the Americans were part of a film crew scouting locations. Chambers worked with the CIA to design realistic props, including a fake script, production documents, and movie posters. He even set up a convincing Hollywood office to make the project seem legitimate. Chambers trained agents on how to act like filmmakers, ensuring they could sell the cover story under intense scrutiny. His expertise in crafting authenticity was absolutely vital to the operation's success. This mission, codenamed Operation Jawbreaker, was incredibly risky. The Americans had to maintain their cover identities as they navigated through Iranian checkpoints to board their flight out of the country. Thanks to the thorough planning and Chambers' ingenious contributions, the mission worked. The Americans posed as the movie crew and escaped safely. The operation became legendary, showcasing how creativity and quick thinking can overcome even the most dangerous odds. Years later, it was immortalized in the Oscar-winning film Argo. Chambers' contribution to this real-life spy thriller proves that Hollywood magic isn't just for the screen. It can save lives, too. Okay, so we all know Harry Houdini, right? He's like the OG magician and escape artist who could break out of handcuffs, straitjackets, and even sealed tanks of water. But what if I told you Houdini wasn't just escaping for applause? He was also using his talents to help out in the shadowy world of spies. Now, Houdini was performing during the late 1800s and early 1900s, long before the CIA was a thing. Back then, it was more about secretive international intelligence networks. And Houdini? He wasn't just an entertainer. He was kind of like a human Swiss Army knife. Here's the deal. Houdini's magic shows took him all over the world. He performed in Europe, Russia, and even places like Germany and Scotland. And while he was there, he wasn't just doing card tricks and escaping from locked boxes. He was also gathering intel. You see, Houdini had this incredible ability to charm people and get them to talk. He'd cozy up to high-ranking officials, security personnel, and sometimes even government spies. And while they were all starstruck, Houdini would casually ask questions or just observe. He paid close attention to security systems, locks, safes, and anything that could be useful for, well, espionage. Some historians believe Houdini passed this information to Secret Service organizations in the US and Britain. It wasn't officially documented because, duh, spies don't exactly keep public records. But there's strong evidence that Houdini worked with a British intelligence network called MI5. He reportedly shared details about locks, safes, and even police procedures he encountered during his travels. Oh, and here's a fun twist. Houdini's knack for escape wasn't just for show, it was valuable intelligence. When he visited Russia in 1903, he performed in front of high-ranking officials and jail wardens, escaping from one of the toughest Siberian shackles they had. Afterward, some believe he shared tips with Western intelligence on how Russian prisons worked. I mean, imagine being Houdini, casually escaping from the world's toughest locks and then spilling the beans about it to spies. What a flex, right? But Houdini wasn't just about locks and secrets. He also helped develop handcuffs and other security tools. And, to be honest, it's kind of poetic. He spent his life escaping from traps. And in the process, he helped others figure out how to build or break them. Now, Houdini wasn't officially recognized as a spy, because, you know, spy life, but his connections with intelligence groups and his unique skills make it pretty clear. This magician was doing more than just pulling rabbits out of hats. Alright, so, you know Gloria Steinem, right? She's like this iconic feminist writer and activist who totally shook things up in the 1960s and 70s. But guess what? Before she became the Gloria Steinem we all know, she had a little side hustle with the CIA. So, here's the deal. Back in the late 1950s and early 60s, Gloria was fresh out of college and kind of figuring out her life like we all do, right? She got an opportunity to work with this CIA-funded group called the Independent Research Service. Their job was to organize and fund students to attend global youth festivals. Sounds pretty innocent, huh? Well, these festivals were like low-key Cold War battlegrounds for propaganda between the US and the Soviet Union. The Soviets would try to spread their "we're better than the West" message, and the CIA wanted to counter that by, you know, promoting democracy and freedom. Now, Gloria didn't, run around in disguises or anything. Instead, her role was more about organizing these events and making sure they went smoothly. She later said she didn't even know the CIA was funding the group at first. But, to be honest, when she found out, she wasn't, mad or anything. She thought they were doing good work and she was proud of what she did. Here's a fun twist. When people found out about this years later, some critics were like, wait, Gloria worked for the CIA? But she totally owned it. She explained that her work was about cultural exchange and fighting Soviet propaganda, not about shady spy stuff. I mean, she was kind of like a secret agent for freedom of thought, right? Okay, so you probably know Julia Child as the cheerful, larger-than-life chef who taught America how to cook fancy French dishes, right? But here's the thing. Julia Child wasn't just about cooking fancy French meals. Back in the 1940s, during World War II, she joined the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services. Think of it as the CIA before the CIA was officially a thing. Julia had tried to join the Women's Army Corps, but they turned her down because, get this, she was too tall. She was like, fine, I'll go do something even cooler. So, she ended up working with the OSS. Her first big project was coming up with, and it was shark repellent. The military needed it for underwater explosives, and Julia helped the scientists test and refine the formula. I mean, it's kind of hilarious that one of the greatest chefs in history started her career by keeping sharks away from bombs. But Julia didn't stop there. She also handled top-secret files and helped with intelligence work in places like Sri Lanka and China. She was super organized and had this knack for getting things done. After the war, she met her husband, Paul Child, through the OSS. He was also in the intelligence world, and the two of them had this amazing, adventurous life together. Now let's talk about Arnon Milchan, the man behind blockbuster movies like Pretty Woman and Fight Club. But here's the twist. Milchan wasn't just a Hollywood producer. He was also a covert operative for Israel. Back in the 1960s, Milchan was recruited by Israel's intelligence agency, the Mossad. His mission? Help procure weapons and technology for Israel's defense programs. And he wasn't just dabbling in this. Milchan was a key player. He used his business connections to secretly acquire materials and equipment critical to Israel's national security. What makes this even wilder is how he balanced it all. While producing iconic films, Milchan was also running covert operations. His charm and industry connections made him the perfect undercover asset. It's like he was living in two worlds. One with red carpets and movie premieres, and another with clandestine meetings and high-stakes deals. Milchan himself admitted to his double life in interviews, saying he was proud of his contributions to Israel. But it wasn't without risks. Operating in the shadows meant constantly looking over his shoulder. Still, his work had a lasting impact on Israel's security and its standing in the global arena. So next time you watch one of his movies, remember, the guy behind the scenes wasn't just making entertainment, he was also shaping history. Now let's talk about Cary Grant. Known for his suave charm in movies like North by Northwest, Grant wasn't just a Hollywood legend. He also had ties to British intelligence during World War II. Grant's connections to MI5, Britain's counterintelligence agency, were as unique as his career. During the war, he used his fame and international connections to help the Allied cause. He'd mingle with high society and share valuable information about individuals whose loyalty to the Allies was in question. Imagine using cocktail parties as covert operations. Grant made it look effortless. One of his notable contributions was keeping an eye on suspected Nazi sympathizers in Hollywood. Grant's charm allowed him to gather intel without raising suspicion. He reportedly even donated his salaries from certain films to support the British war effort. Talk about dedication. After the war, Grant kept his espionage work under wraps, but hints of his secret life emerged later. He'd joke about being a real spy before playing one on screen, adding a new layer to his iconic persona. So next time you watch one of his classic films, remember, Grant wasn't just pretending to be the suave secret agent. He was living it too. Let's dive into Howard Hunt, a real-life spy whose name became infamous after the Watergate scandal. Before the controversy, Hunt had a decorated career with the CIA, where he was involved in some of the agency's most secretive missions during the Cold War. Hunt joined the CIA in the late 1940s, working on covert operations in Latin America and Europe. He was deeply involved in missions aimed at countering Soviet influence, including efforts to overthrow foreign governments seen as threats to U.S. interests. His work required secrecy, strategy, and nerves of steel. But Hunt's most infamous chapter came after his CIA days. In the early 1970s, he worked for President Nixon's team as part of the White House Plumbers, a group tasked with stopping information leaks. This led to the infamous Watergate break-in, where Hunt and others attempted to bug the Democratic National Committee headquarters. When the operation failed, it triggered an investigation that uncovered a web of corruption and cover-ups, ultimately leading to Nixon's resignation. Hunt's role in planning the break-in made him a central figure in the scandal. He was convicted and served prison time, leaving behind a complicated legacy. Hunt's life was a mix of patriotism and controversy. A man who served his country in secret, but became synonymous with one of its darkest political moments. And there you have it, from Hollywood stars to real-life spies. Thanks for sticking around for the whole wild ride. Until next time, take care.